my father was really, strict on order, organization, and the incremental completion of tasks, and also combined with my mother's push on education. As a really young child, we had to put hospital corners on our beds and our shoes were lined up, and, so, at 6 years old, we were forced to think along those military lines. And everything was a mission to my father. Like, there was nothing that was a basic task. You weren't just gonna wash the dishes. It was a mission, that had to be completed with, military precision, down to how much dishwashing liquid you're using and how much the bottle costs. And if you use that much, and how many dishes do you wash with that amount of dishwashing liquid, and how long are you going to be able to use this dishwashing bottle, so you can relate that to how much work you have to do to be able to wash that many.
Your dad sounds Indian.
Yeah.
I have to say, so Will, is your dad Indian? Wow. That is intense.
Yeah, so it was really, his mind was like that, and I took, we always take the things we hate the most from our parents. But, from that, the gift of structure and the gift of breaking tasks down, you set the goal, but the breaking the tasks down into smaller, manageable pieces was a thing that I came out of my childhood with. For example, you met JL.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I told when I said I wanted to be the biggest movie star in the world, and I was 18 or something.
I haven't met him yet.
Yeah,
I know you're talking about. I haven't met him yet. Yeah, I know you're talking about. Yeah.
And I said I want to be the biggest movie star in the world. So the first thing that we did is we looked at, what are the top 10 movies of all time? Because if you want to be the biggest movie star in the world, you're going to have to make the biggest movies in the world. Mm-hmm. So we said, what are the top 10 movies? So we looked at the top 10 movies. We said, well, what are the patterns? What are the patterns in the top 10 movies? And at the time, 10 out of 10 were special effects movies. And 9 out of 10 were special effects movies with creatures. And 8 out of 10 were special effects movies with creatures and a love story. So, that's where the bent for me towards sci-fi movies came from, the recognition of the patterns of sci-fi creatures and a love story. So that became what we were looking for with everything. And then Independence Day was a no-brainer, and then Men in Black was, behind that.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of systemized
algorithm.
Yes, yeah. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Looking for what is the pattern, and that's one of the gifts my father stuck me with coming out of childhood.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite parts about talking to you, because of this ability to turn those into gifts.
Yeah.
And I want to just emphasize that point to everyone who's listening and watching again, because I think we're living in a time right now where there's a lot of bitterness towards parents and what we received, and rightly so as well. Like, some things are, quite hard to deal with, that level of trauma, etc. But at the same time, when we start looking at our lives this way, not in a fake way or an ingenuine way, but really start to process some of these things, to see the powers that it gave us.
Absolutely.
All the superheroes that we all love in sci-fi movies, they all got their powers from bad things that happened to them.
Exactly.
Like, no one ever had something good happen to them. And then they, like, for Spider-Man, he got bit by a spider. For this person, got abandoned by his parents. Like, all the superheroes we all love and worship all got their powers from something bad happening to them.
It's really difficult to say that to someone in the in the middle of the throes
And
of
you
a
shouldn't.
traumatic experience.
We've
Talked about that, right? But,
Yeah.
from sitting on this side of the experiences that I've shared, in my life and in my experience, there's no such thing as a bad experience, right? There's experiences you don't like.
And they hurt.
Right? But to define something as a bad experience, for me, has not been true. Everything that's ever happened to me in my life that at the time was deeply traumatic and debilitating. There's been only 2 times in my life when I contemplated suicide.
Wow.
There's been 2 times in my life. And the once was when my mother and father separated. When my parents broke up, and I was 12, and that was one of the only serious times in my life that I contemplated suicide. But even out of that, as I look back on that, the pain of that experience cultivated devotion in my life to my family, and I just never wanted to have my children suffer that. And of course, I got divorced from Cherie, so I was recreating that situation, but it woke me up in a way that forced me to try to connect with my children. So the negative experiences or the things that were awful at the time, there's always the other side of the coin. And in my experience, I've cultivated only positive things out of the most negative experiences of my life. My father's death, and the 6 weeks up to my father's death, was probably the most formative time in my life. And as painful as it was, and as difficult it was, and all the stuff that came up during the time, it was a powerful, formative, positive experience in my life.
Tell us a bit about that, if you don't mind, about why you felt it was formative. And because I think a lot of people go through the loss of their parents, and we've talked about this, like the idea of like sometimes people regret of what they did or didn't say to their parent, or maybe what they expected of their parent. What was it that was so powerful that allowed you to feel that way about that moment? Because
I got a gift that some people don't get, and it was that the doctors told us he had 6 weeks to live, right? So, and then he lived for 4 months, right? So I got a warning. So most people don't get a warning. You just get the call one day, and you just didn't get a chance. And when I found out that he was dying, it just, by the grace of God, was in the middle of the shooting. I was doing a movie called Collateral Beauty, and it was about a guy dealing with the death of his daughter. So I was into the Tibetan book of living and dying, and reading all the, was it Elizabeth Kubler, just reading all this stuff about death. So I've been programmed for 6 months, and I had read and studied all these books about death and grief and dying, and then I get the message, and I was like, I sat down with my father, and of course I had all of my traumas and all of my issues and everything with him, but I had also I've 6 months of programming of all of the things that you're supposed to do, to prepare yourself for the death of a loved one. And so I sat with him and we talked about everything. So I said everything that I wanted to say, and we got to those 6 weeks. And when we got to those 6 weeks, we were clear. But then he lived for another 3 months. So what happened was every meeting, every time I saw him, I was flying back to LA, but every time I saw him, was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
And then every time we said goodbye, we made sure we said a good, thorough, full goodbye, because we knew at any moment it could actually be the last goodbye, right? But the lesson was, it's always like that. When we say goodbye, we can't know if this is the last time we will ever see. You should never greet someone casually or say goodbye to someone casually. And that lesson came from that experience. Every moment was so rich. Every time we saw each other, it was, and every time we said goodbye, we made sure it was a good, thorough, full goodbye. But that's how you're supposed to live every day anyway. Every time you leave your house could be the last time. You're supposed to be in the richness of your hellos and goodbyes and thank yous, And, so I learned that lesson with my father. And then when he passed, it was easy. We were finished, and just the lesson of that kind of presence and that kind of attention and that kind of recognition that tomorrow's not promised, and just getting shaken out of thinking that you're going to have, tomorrow. Anybody who hasn't spoken to their parents or their brother or their cousin that they had a thing with or their ex and they don't talk anymore, call them right now. You just don't think you're gonna have a chance to call them to tomorrow or next week. And it's like that opportunity with my father changed every relationship in my life. I've cleaned all of the relationships in my life to no regret. I do not want someone to be gone and I wish I had and wish I could have. And I'm not doing that in my life.
That's beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing that. That's just, hearing you say that, I think there's a lot of people who needed to hear that. And I'm hoping everyone's going to pick up the phone and message. And if that person's not here anymore, still write them a letter.
Right, absolutely.
Right? If they're not here anymore and you didn't get to say all of that, write a letter. Mm-hmm. Read it out to them. Yeah. Read it to a picture of them if that's what it takes.
Absolutely.
Allow yourself to share and express. Yeah. Don't hold it in and hold it back, because somehow that energy will still reach that person, and that energy's left you too. So
absolutely.
Even if you can't call someone up today, make sure you still follow the same practice, because it's just not, it's never worth it. It's never worth it.
It's just never worth it.
Never worth it. And I love that idea of valuing each hello and goodbye.
Absolutely.
And not taking it for granted or taking it lightly. You never know whatever's gonna happen, right? You just have no idea. And unfortunately, we see it. This is the, there's actually a beautiful, I don't know if we ever talked about this, there's a beautiful piece in the Mahabharata, which is the Gita is a small part of. And one of the students asked the teacher, he said, what's the most amazing thing in the world? Like, what's the most incredible thing in the world? And the teacher responds and says, the most incredible, amazing thing in the world is that we see people leave all around us, but we never think it's gonna be us.
I never.
So you see it and you have that moment again and again, and then you lose someone in your life and you think, oh, that could be me, or that could be someone else. And you live like that for a day, and then the complacency sets back in.
Absolutely.
Tell us a bit about, you've been studying world religions and spiritual paths for a long time.
Absolutely.
And the first time I officially reached out to you and your team and everyone, which was a few years back now, was because I saw that you'd been reading the Gita. Yeah. And the Gita was obviously the book that I read and studied so deeply and fell in love with. And after having studied world religions myself too, and I've had beautiful experiences reading the Bible and the Quran and the Gita. And so when I saw you talking about it when you were in India, I was just like, wow, like, this is amazing. Like, I'm already a huge fan. I love Will Smith. Like, how is Will reading the Gita? I was like, how did that even happen? And then when I got to know you and Jada and spoke to the family, I realized that you'd taken on a challenge to like study a world religion every year. And tell us about that and what you learned along the way. What were some of the traditions that stood out in your journey and what did you learn from them, whether it was the Kabbalah or even Scientology, all those, because you've shared so many beautiful lessons with me from what you've studied.
Yeah.
And I'd love to pass them on.
So what was, I guess probably in the first 10 years of our marriage, that was me and Jada's bonding, right? So every year we would pick a spiritual tradition and we would study it all the way through.
How did you even start doing that? Like, because when I heard you did that, I think Jada told me first, and when I heard you did that, I was just like, it just took me aback because you don't come across that all the time. And I was lucky enough to study world religions. My father started encouraging me when I was about 14 to start reading spiritual books. And I dated a Muslim girl who asked me to read the Quran. That's how I read the Quran, which was a wonderful experience in my life at 16. I read the Bible because we would celebrate Christmas and I'd feel guilty that we celebrated Christmas, but I hadn't read the Bible. Oh, right. So I started going to church on Christmas and then reading about Christ and the Bible, and I just absolutely fell in love with the scripture. And then I was just reading so many different books. And finally I came back to the Gita, which was the book I was brought up with. But yeah, tell me about even why you and Jada decided to do that.
So I don't even know how it developed as a thing. I know when we got married, we were trying to decide, what church we were going to get married, and were we going to get married in Baltimore or Philly, and who was going to be the priest, and so Gammy had a different religious background than Gigi, so we were trying to figure all of that kind of stuff out, and Jada didn't want to do any of that. Jada wanted for she and I to go to a mountain, and, pledge our love and devotion to one another, to God, without, she felt like we weren't going to adhere to this specific religious tradition. We would just be picking it for her mother or my grandmother or something to try to figure that out. So I think the discussion about the religious background we would raise our children in is what came up when we first got married. And she grew up in a thing called the Ethical Society in Baltimore, and they would honor the different religions. And my background, I grew up, I went to a Baptist church. I went to a Catholic school. And somewhere in that first decade of our marriage, we were like, oh, wouldn't it be hot if we could say that we had read cover to cover all of the major holy books. And we started with the Bible, and I just remember seeing her Bible was marked. You know how I do my books now. You see how all my books are highlighted all the way through. And, she completed the entire Bible, 7 months before me, right? So now it's on, right? So then when it came to time for the Quran, I was like, I wanted to win, right? But, so we would take a year and we would study all of these traditions as really as a way of the two of us bonding spiritually and intellectually around the concepts. And we went through Kabbalah and Scientology. And really what was happening is every time I would meet someone who was of a different tradition, I would allow that person to introduce me to what their tradition was. And then I did Ali. And so we circled back around to the Quran during that time. But we really just, we love the idea of spirituality and the study of the love of God. We don't necessarily believe in organized religion. We believe that the organizations kind of jump ahead of the spirituality. The Church of Christ is very different than Christ. The steps that Christ actually walked. So we started to notice those kinds of differences, and we really just wanted to find the truth. What is the truth? And you see how my whole family dives in. The kids are doing it now, with the Gita. And it's really just trying to find our way, in this world.
Yeah. And I love that. And I was so fascinated by that myself because I saw that within myself. Mm-hmm. And so when I saw it with you and the family, I was so drawn to that because I think that a lot of what we're trying to figure out in today's world has been suffered for long enough in an internal way that when you're diving into these books of wisdom, there's just so much there to unearth because people have been through the same challenges for decades and decades and decades.
The problems have already been solved.
Yeah. and lived for long enough.
And solved,
Yeah.
And at the core of all of the spiritual teachings that I've ever studied, at the core of all of the ideas, how you treat your neighbor is central, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yet somehow people manage to twist, in all faiths and all backgrounds,
totally.
People do unto others as you would have them do unto you is very clear. Mm-hmm. If you ask yourself that question, well, in this situation, how would I have them do unto me? And you did that, you'd never have a problem. Because the answer is never going to be, I think they should curse me out and spit on me and whoop my ass because I was tripping. It's like, you just, I guess somebody
maybe. No. I think you're right. I think you're right.
If I were in this situation, how would I want them to treat me?
Yeah.
Right?
It's huge. It's the most simple, yet the most profound.
Most profound.
Our teachers in the ashram would always tell us, and I've said this to you before, but they'd always tell us that these principles, you'll learn them on day one, mm-hmm. You'll think that you know them on day two, mm-hmm. But you spend your whole life trying to realize them.
Yes.
And that's the challenge with us, that we take what we learn on day one and what we know on day two to be like, I already know that.
Yes, exactly.
And then the teaching doesn't, what I love about what we've been doing is like, the teaching gets to like reveal itself to you. It's like, it's always opening up. It's like a lotus flower. It's always blooming. It's not like, oh, it's open now, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like always opening up to you. And if you give it that time and patience, then you can truly see it grow and bloom into something. But if you just try and force it open, it just, if you forced a flower open, it would just break.
Yes,
and that's
exactly.
What happens.
What I say to you all the time is, so to give people a sense of it. So we were doing, 2 to 4 hours a day, a few days a week for months.
For months, yeah.
For months, and we were spending as much time together as we would spend with our families or other things. So we've logged some real hours in this last year. And the thing that was always amazing to me is that we could take 8 hours, right? And we spend it and we get it and we study, we do all of that. And you leave my house and I pick up my phone, how quickly somebody could snatch me. I was like, and it really is a serious moment-to-moment practice to remember to be nice to people. When you get sucked back into the foolishness so hard and so fast, and that was frustrating to me for a while. Like literally we would do 8 hours. And I'm great. And you wouldn't be off of the block yet. And I pick up my phone and it's a business call. And literally that fast, like literally in 45 seconds, my mind could get triggered back into that mindset. I know now that's just, it's every day.
Yeah.
It's, you don't get to know it and be done. Yeah. Like it's a daily practice for the rest of your life to be able to deal with the foolishness of this world in a way that's productive and kind.
Yeah. Now everyone knows I'm terrible at what I do.
Well, I know.
It's like, as soon as you have to do it, it's like, oh, wow, like, Jay, you're really bad at this.
It's like, oh, Jay, you should have left Will with a little more girth than that.
I know. You can't even last 2 seconds with that. That's terrible.
Well, you're working with years of sediment,
All of us, lifetimes, like the conditioning is so strong.
Yeah.
And it's almost like when we start to do the work, you're walking into a garden full of weeds.
Yeah.
So all the flowers are covered. All the beauty of the garden is covered in weeds. Yeah. And so you're cutting down the weeds. But because you've been watering the weeds for so long, they keep growing back. And so you keep cutting them down and they keep growing back. And it's the example, the analogy of the mirror that's given in the Vedic tradition around how when you walk in and you try and clean a mirror that hasn't been cleaned for lifetimes, it's dusty. Yeah. And so when you start cleaning it, the dust comes up in your face and you're like, I can't see. I can't see. And that's what we're all going through. Yeah. And when we start realizing what you just said, the day to day, it's like if all of us said we want to plant, I keep using gardening analogies, but it's only because it makes so much sense. I feel because we're so disconnected from nature, our mindset has become instant and our mindset has become now. Whereas when you watch nature, nature's never instant.
Yeah. Like, I call that hunting versus farming.
Right. Everybody, okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
Hunting versus farming, where people let's get it. Let's get it and eat, right?
That's a great, I love that. I love that.
Versus, no, we're gonna we have to
plant the crops, grow the. I love that. Yeah, because it's the idea that if me and you said we want to plant a tree, you'd have to come back to that tree every day to see how it was doing.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be a tree for many, many years, but you'd have to come back every day, water it, sunlight, move it, replant the soil. Yeah. And that's what we're doing with ourselves. But for some reason, because we're so disconnected from nature now, we think that, if I just meditate today, then it's, it's like saying, I'll eat today and I don't have to eat tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
Or I showered last week.
I showered last week. I'm good. I'm good.
But yeah, it's, and it was your commitment. I remember when we were on that first phone call and I was like, you were like, oh yeah, I want to work on this. I was like, how much time do you have? Like, how much time do you have? And you're Will Smith, so I'm thinking you don't have any time. And I don't know how serious you get yet. Yeah. I'm not aware yet of how immersed and obsessed you get with stuff. I'm still learning about you. And then you're like, I've got 2 hours. And I was like, all right, 2 hours a week, 2 hours bi-weekly, 2 hours monthly. You're like, no, 2 hours a day.
2 hours a day.
And I was like, wow, he's real. I was like, he's serious. I was like, wow, he's for real. And then, and I'd go away and you re-inspired so much of my own study. And that's what I was telling to you over Christmas. which is when we kind of broke off as I went to London and you've been traveling. It's like I spend the whole of Christmas reading myself for 4 to 8 hours a day, meditating again.
That's beautiful.
Because I felt I had to be more to give you more.
That's beautiful.
And I think that was such a gift you gave me, where I fell back in love with what I fell in love with years ago.
That's beautiful.
Because of the work we were doing.
Yeah.
And because when you're answering someone's questions, you have to read deeper and think more and reflect more. And so for me, I went away from those meetings going, gosh, I better start reading more. That's what's so beautiful about sharing something like that together.
It was great when with the Radhanath Swami, when you told him that you were going to be working with me, and I just loved his response. He said, "Oh, that is so great. You're going to get to teach all of the things you need to learn." Yeah.
I remember I was just telling him, I was like, I was explaining to him how sincere you are, and I was like, he's so serious and he's sincere. And that's what he came back with. That's when you know you got a good teacher who knows how to like squash your ego and make you realize how small you are. Yeah. And it was beautiful because from that moment, that was my attitude when I was meeting you. I was like, I'm saying this for me, I'm saying this for, and that allows you to be so much more, just allows you to get out of the way. Yeah. And let the wisdom do its work.
Yeah, that's so real. The central problem that has been the focus of my life and everything that I've done has been centered on having a successful love relationship, right? So I saw my parents when they were growing up, and I hated that my parents' marriage deteriorated. And, as young as I can remember, 5, 6 years old, I wanted to be married. I wanted to have a family. I've never been the guy that wanted to do threesomes and groupies, and I've never been that guy. I always wanted to commit and have a single successful relationship. So the scientist in my mind and in my study of spiritual texts and things like that, I've always been looking for the secret to successful love relationships. And then as I've grown, it's sort of expanded, and I'm seeing the through line. The same basic ideas are successful parenting, and the same basic ideas are being a successful follower or a successful leader or a successful student. And I started to see the central issues with all of human relating. And it's the problems, or it's not even problems, the problem is really singular. If you're talking about a husband and a wife, or you're talking about a parent and a child, or a Democrat and a Republican, or a Saudi and an American, whatever, in all of the configurations of human difficulty, at the center of it is almost exclusively a lack of understanding of the other person's perspective, right? And it sounds simple, and it may oversimplify slightly, but the concept of ignorance, the concepts of ignorance and delusion are always the problem.
Yeah.
Right? It's always the center. If you have a difficulty with another human being, there's some point of ignorance and some point of delusion that are keeping you from being able...
On both sides.
On both sides, right? And the problem is you can only worry about yours. You have to clear yours, and then once you clear yours and your vision gets clean and purified, and you approach a person from a purified space, things get a whole lot easier, you know? And it's like, you are always bringing poison to the party. And when you recognize that in any difficulty you're having with any human being, you brought poison to the party, right? And if you can focus on locating and purifying the poison you brought, it opens up entirely new avenues of connection and compromise and solutions that you can create with a person. And, you know, that has really been the central focus of my life, and being an actor has been spectacular in that way, because my life is exploring my mind, you know, and changing it.
And that's one of the things I learned as soon as I cracked it open. I remember reading the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success and tearing up, you know? And I remember reading Asking and It's Given by Esther and Jerry Hicks, and like feeling my whole vibration change. And that is one of the most, that is the first time that I realized that there are two realities. There's a reality that we see with our eyes and our feel and touch. And then there is a reality just as real, where it is our spiritual world that we can create and manifest. And that is the reality with a capital R. You know what I'm saying? That's the real reality that you bring to the other reality. And so anyway, I did these exercises, man. Like, I only read books because I had to in school. That was like my thing. Like,
I can relate.
You know? And it was some good books, right? Like I remember we read Animal Farm, The Hobbit, all these great books that helped me, but I still never read on my own time. So these were the first books I read on my own time. You know, I graduated high school. I ended up meeting Kanye right before I graduated high school. So I ended up rapping for him. It's a classic fairy tale hip hop story. You meet your idol, you rap for him, he hears you out. And I had been recording CDs since I was 11 years old, man. So I had been passing out CDs around school, selling them for $5, $3. I had been participating in open mics, battle rapping. I had gone to the radio station every Friday after school, even when, you know, because when I turned 16, my grandmother had a stroke and she had a brand new car. So it was a bittersweet thing, because it was tragic to see my grandma, you know, have a stroke, and the strongest woman I've ever seen literally get old instantaneously. And then I ended up getting a car, which provided me to get places that I needed to get to, you know, to make the moves I was trying to make. Cause I had that hustler mentality. I was like, I had to do it. You know, Eminem was the only rapper from Detroit at the time that was doing it big. And just to keep it real, I got to represent for Black, you feel me? And be like, and put on for my city. And I just felt the responsibility, man. And I know I'm skipping around a lot.
That's all good, man. That's all good.
Yeah, but I would do this radio show every week. And that led me to meeting Kanye, because he was at the radio promoting his album, Late Registration, at the time. And, you know, I met him from doing the radio show there every Friday. I lied and said I left my phone in the back offices, so they would let me in the back to go check, because I knew that's where the artists would go. I got a chance to rap for him as he was walking out. You know, he was like, I'm real busy.
How did you have the courage to do that? Because I feel like people probably see you and they're like, oh, I want to go rap for Big Sean. Like, you know, people want to repeat.
All the time.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you think you were able to even have the courage to be like, I'm just going to find a way in the hallway? Like, you know, when he's walking, he's a busy guy.
Well, because when I did that radio show every Friday, we would rap on the air, on the radio.
Yeah.
That was the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever had to do in my life. It would be like, oh my God, everybody who's listening to the radio right now is hearing me. And that was a beautiful platform, right, for up-and-coming MCs to come in and display. And I would write a new verse every week, and I was super nervous. So I had done that for about a year straight already by the time I met him. So I was used to rapping under pressure.
Right.
So when I saw him and was delivering it, it was just like I had so many raps in my head already, and I was freestyling, and I was used to delivering under pressure. So I was able to dynamically, you know, I delivered it as best I could.
Yeah.
And he heard me. He heard me out, and he was like, "Well, you got a CD?" And it's like, "Well, yeah, because I had CDs that I was selling in high school. I had my CDs ready. I had a bio ready. I had everything ready." And it's crazy because ever since I was 11 years old, single thing I had done so far had led up to that moment. It all happened. And it was like, yeah, I had the CD, I had this, I had that. And he followed through, but it took years after that. That's what people don't get. It wasn't like I rapped for him and that was it. You know, I rapped for him and thought it was going to be like that. That's why I didn't go to school. That's why I turned everything down. And then I stopped getting a response from him. And then all my friends are in college. A whole semester goes by, and they're like, "Man, you could have came to school. What you still at home? Like, what's up with Kanye? What's up with your record deal? Like, what's up?" Like,
that's the hardest to hear.
That's the hardest. And I come from a family. My grandma's like, "Why aren't you need to go to school? Like, this is the way to a better life." You know, she grew up in poverty and made her way to that point. You know, and she's like, education is the way. And it was the hardest thing to go against the grain. You know, and my mom was really one of the only people who, even though she was a teacher herself, right, an English teacher, has her master's degree, she knew what it was like to have a dream, and she knew what it was like to chase it, you know. So she believed, of course, education is important, but you can always go back and get it. You can't always take that chance.
You can't do it the other way around, yeah.
So during that time period, for like a year and a half or two, what I did was, that was the first time I intentionally worked on myself. And I intensely would read these books and meditate every day, and, you know, imagine myself like living the life that I was, you know, trying to live. And it just, I don't know how to explain it. It was like I felt like I was there. And what that did was it put me there. It really did. To make a long story short, it put me there.
What were the work that you were doing with that meditation and visioning? Because I'm sure, like you said, and I'm really glad you brought it up, because before, like you said, I was at the radio station. I was rapping live. I was nervous. Like what I find is that with yourself and stories like yours, there's manifestation, but there's also a ton of hard work in the background.
Yes, it is.
Tell me about that part of what were you doing in the background while you're meditating, you're envisioning, you're seeing yourself there. What's happening with rap music and music?
Well, one of the things that I would do in my meditations is I would put out let me attract the people, energy, places that I need to go to the next level in my career. Let me attract the people. And I would meet people, I would meet producers, and we would lock in, and, you know, who had a common belief as mine, or like, you know, the same one, and like, I'm trying to get on as a producer, like, you trying to get on, let's work, right? And I would write things down. I treated it like it was a job. And also, one of the things I had to put in perspective is that it didn't matter how hard I was working necessarily. It really mattered how smart I was working. You know, I had a perception, it is hard work, you're right. But I had the perception that it takes hard work, until I realized that some of the most successful people I knew would work a couple hours a day and enjoy their life. Yeah, it's flowing. And at the end of me and my mom, we grew up in debt, and she worked 2 jobs. And she was working most of her life. So it just didn't make sense to me. You know, early on, I'm like, it's not about working hard. It's about working efficiently and smarter. So that's one of the things I really learned at that age too. So it's a
big lesson.
You know, because a lot of the other people who I would see at studios, they would be like, "Man, I made 8 songs today." Like, I'd be like, "Well, I've been working on the same song for like a week and a half." But it's not about that. You know, it's about the product. It's about what you're doing, and not about necessarily how much you're pumping out. You know what I mean? And that was something I really had to accept, because your ego will not let you accept that sometimes. We've been conditioned, right, to think all these things. And that's I feel like one of the things your book talks about. We've been conditioned to think a certain way. We've been conditioned to, you know, we're given like a certain amount of guidance, options, directions. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to do that. You're supposed to follow the line. You're supposed to do that. You're supposed to do that. Hey, you guys got to do, you know, our whole lives. And a lot of that is just, some of it's great, but some of it just doesn't apply to everyone, you know. And that's one of the things I had to realize and redo my foundation of my whole life and be my architect.
Well said, man. That's beautiful. I love the way you've expressed that, because that must have been an uncomfortable place to live for 1 or 2 years. When you feel you're going to get your break, it doesn't happen. Your friends are now moved on.
Yeah.
And everyone's...
And I'm still in the same bed that I grew up in.
Yeah.
You know, I was sleeping in a twin size bed, man. I'm 18, 19 years old. You feel me?
Yeah.
And it was so frustrating, and it was a test of my ego, bro. It was a test of my ego. But I would visualize Kanye reaching out. I just knew that it was gonna happen. I didn't know how. And like I was like, I'm gonna make it happen somehow. And it did, bro. And it's like something you gotta trust. You know, imagine you being on a cliff and it's like there's no more cliff there, but you like, hey man, there's an invisible bridge. You know, if you had a guidance next to you, like you had your higher self walking next to you, and you're like, bro, there's nowhere to walk. And he's like, I'm telling you, if you take a step, it's an invisible bridge right in front of you. And that takes a lot of faith to walk on that bridge.
Yeah.
You know, that you can't even see.
Yeah.
But that's what I had to do, because that's the decision I made. I wasn't about to go back to school at that moment. I wasn't about to go back to my friends and be like, man, y'all was right. Like, I messed up, man. I should have just, you know, I couldn't do it, you know? Yeah. And that may have been my ego too, but I did let that motivate me. And that's just how it went, you know? And then he did reach out.
Yeah, tell us about that moment, how it felt internally around, were you like, oh, wow, this manifestation stuff works? Was that a point where you deepened your faith and belief in the invisible bridge, where you were like, oh, this stuff really works? Or do you think you already believed that it worked and it was just about trust? Or was this like a confidence point?
I had to trust it first.
Yeah, okay.
I had to trust it first.
Beautiful, yeah.
You know, and that's the thing with everything. You got to trust it. And then it started working. You know, things necessarily don't work before you trust it. It's kind of like you got, you know, I think that's one of the lessons I had to learn. You know, I had to trust in me, trust myself, trust the process, trust God's speed. You know, that expression is so popular for a reason. You know, you can make all these plans. My grandma used to always be like, man, God, you make all these plans, God's going to laugh at you.
Yes, yeah.
You know, that classic saying. And she would say that to me. And so many sayings like that just means so much more now, because it's true. That's why it's so popular. What goes around comes around. You know, all these little things that we heard.
They're true. Yeah.
They're true.
Yeah.
You know, so it's been a beautiful time. And when he did reach out, it was just, it felt like it was confirmation that trust wasn't wasted. It's all a higher power, right?
Yeah.
And that is guiding us and wants to support us.
Yes.
And does support us. Not wants to, does support us.
Absolutely. Did you ask him why it took him so long?
Nah, because, you know, I knew people who were like 30, 40 years old that never got their shot. So I'm not going to be like, man, it took 2 years. What took so long, you know? But, you know, and it was a process after that. And things, I'm not going to sit here and say life is smooth sailing.
Never. You
know, it's not smooth sailing. It's like a constant unraveling experience, right? And things don't, it's so many times, bro, that things don't go my way. And I've done all the work and I'm like, why didn't this happen how I wanted it to happen? And then sometimes where I didn't expect things to do anything. And it turns out to be one of my biggest songs of my career, my biggest moments, or one of my greatest experiences, or things that I've like, okay, I put so much energy and power into this and it not do what I wanted it to do. Like, these are things that I go through on a daily basis, but I had to realize that it's all the side of life that I'm on is such a unique side, and it's the blessed side.
Yeah.
And that anything that happens to me, anything, you know, it's all love, it's all beautiful, you know, and it's something to be learned from it. It's something to be gained from it. It's, you know, that you when you win something, you learn something. When you lose something, you learn something. You know, you still win something.
Yeah.
You gain something, you know, so it's crazy, man. It's really crazy.
Did you find that when you finally made it into the music industry, that there were people like you that meditated, that were visioning, that were working from this deeper core place? Did you find that, or did you find that your spirituality was almost threatened or questioned, or there weren't people seeing eye to eye? How did you feel about that? Did you find like it was still natural to stay true to what got you there? Because you had a very different journey in terms of internal journey towards music.
Yeah. I would see both.
Yeah.
I would see people. One of the reasons I wanted to sign to Kanye, because his first album inspired me so much.
Yeah, same.
And I can tell that whether he knows it or not, he clearly is a manifester.
Mm-hmm.
He clearly is a spiritual being too, you know, or you could call it religious. To me, it's you know, there are so many similarities, right? But he is somebody who is a manifester. He's somebody who's a creator,
Mm-hmm.
right? He's somebody who I've saw him wield ideas from, you know, the inspiration of God, or, you know, whatever he can say it is, but that drew me to him, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it in a lot of people. I've seen it, you know, when I sit and talk to Jay-Z, it's like I don't have to sit and like talk to him so deeply about it. I can just tell that he has this, you know, there are a lot of people who I met, even DJ Khaled.
Yeah.
You know, he's somebody who is, you know,
manifesting for sure.
A manifester.
Yeah.
You know, and his story is crazy. I don't know if you've ever talked to him.
I haven't. No.
His story is crazy, man.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a beautiful, beautiful story. And we all have stories.
Mm.
And there are people who, like, those are people who you would kind of like be like, oh, okay, I can see that. But then there are people who I also have met, or even Janae, you know, you could tell Janae is like very aware.
For sure.
And, you know, somebody who is spiritually in tune. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I love about this conversation and all the people you're mentioning. I think we see an external PR version of who we think those people are on the front cover of magazines or music videos or whatever it may be. But behind everyone, there's a deeper story. It wasn't just like that. Tell us about when. I'm intrigued because I feel like a lot of people listening to us right now, they may actually feel blocked from that envisioning, right? They feel blocked. Like they feel like they're not getting. When have you felt blocked? Or if someone's listening and they feel blocked, what's blocking them? Like how do they remove that? How do they let go? What are they needing to let go of?
Well, this is deep, dog. You're getting deep.
I had to go there with you. You're giving me deep talk, so I don't want to, you know, gotta dive in.
Well, one thing I've learned on my journey is that there are blocks that are sometimes placed on us from our parents or from our surroundings. And whether you believe this or not, I believe it is true, even from a past life. And
I'm with you.
It makes total sense because I've met complete babies who were like, this is like an old man sitting here, right? He's very mature, you know, it's like, but anyway, I have worked with people who have helped me remove blocks from my life. Marie Diamond being one of them, you know, and that's a whole deeper conversation. But she has, in the last few years, is someone who has helped, who has been a mentor to me spiritually and helped me along my spiritual journey. And, you know, honestly, when I just think about the blocks that I've had in my life. So to go back to that, to think about people who are feeling blocked, know that you have to believe that you can feel unblocked. because you're giving it power by acknowledging like, I'm blocked. You're putting that out in the universe. Remember like what we said, the sayings that people live by that you've heard, what goes around comes around, what you get is what you give. Those are real things. And you subconsciously, and that subconscious mind is just as powerful as the conscious one. When you say, I'm feeling blocked, or man, I'm down bad. You know, I've heard people just say all these things that they put on themselves, like, I can't figure it out. I can't figure it out. So, okay, imagine if you're in front of the universe and God, and he's like, whatever you say, I'm going to give back to you. Like, whatever you say, I'm going to give it back to you. So you sitting up here like, I can't figure it out, man. I can't make money. I can't do this. I can't do, you know, I feel like it's like, even when I did feel blocked, and if I did think that, I never owned it. And I'd be like, no, okay, I got to switch that. I got to feel better. So the first key to unblocking something is acknowledging that you are blocking yourself for sure. You know, and I do think there are some deeper blocks that you got to work harder on to remove, like blocks that may have not even been put there from you, so you're not even acknowledging it or know how to remove it. And there are special people who can do this, you know, that can help you get rid of it. But I do feel like you're blocking yourself, and you got to realize that. Stop blocking yourself. It doesn't matter if you don't have money. Don't say you don't have money.
Yeah.
Be like, I got money. Money's coming in right now. Like, it feels good to be rich. If you keep that mentality and you're not rich, I promise you, if you really believe it, which you have to believe it because you just have to. If you will be whatever you want to be. And it's never too late to be who you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I used to have a mentor, I remember, he used to repeat to me the Napoleon Hill words of like, you become what you think about.
Yeah.
And he just keeps saying it to me, and he told me to keep saying it. And when he first said it, I was just like, oh, come on. Like, you know, how many times are you going to say it? It's like a mantra. When I first became a monk and they introduced me to mantra, you're saying the same thing every day again and again. And you're thinking, oh, this ain't going to work. But actually what you're saying is true, that when you repeat, you become what you think about.
Yeah.
And when you keep repeating it, it becomes your vocabulary, it becomes your mindset, it becomes your thought, and then it becomes your reality. And you're spot on. I love what you said about being in front of God and you saying, I can't do this, I can't do that. And God's giving you back exactly what you're repeating.
He's like, you're right, man, you can't.
Yeah.
All right, hey. Like.
Yeah, you said it. Yeah, and that is such a great way of thinking about it as a conversation around how we're creating our reality through our repetition.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk to you about being a monk too. That's like when we have dinner next week. But one of the things that made me think about this is when I would come home and watch Bob Ross on PBS painting the pictures, or when I would watch Michael Jordan and all these, or Kobe Bryant and all these inspiring people when I was growing up, Mike Tyson, right? Or just Michael Jackson, anybody that I can think of. I like all the artwork on the wall.
A few people you mentioned are up there. So yeah, there's a few people.
But when I was thinking about that, it just brings me back to technique. How much of life is truly technique. And that is one of the biggest secrets I've learned when I was going through one of the roughest times of my life a few years ago. I had just turned 30 and I was feeling so depressed, bro. And I had just moved into my house that I've been in for a few years in Beverly Hills, right? Slashes. I got it from Slash from Guns N' Roses. You know, all of my neighbors are, you know, Vanna White is my neighbor. I'm like talking like, this is like, to me, this was like my dream. This is my dream neighborhood, right? And I was in the worst condition of my life, bro. I felt it was just too hard for me to even get through the day. I felt like...
How did you get there? Why did it get there? After all of this envisioning, focus, inner work, how did it get there?
You know why I got there? Because I lost touch with it a little bit. Not just because of that. I burned myself out. I wasn't paying attention to what myself was saying to me. I was doing it for all different other reasons. I need to do this show. I need to do 5 shows so I can get this money, take care of this person, do it for this. Oh, my management, everybody is expecting me. I got people who are on my payrolls. I'm like, I'm putting everybody before me.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to balance work and work because there's a work that you do for your career and there's a work that you do for yourself.
Yes.
No one ever taught me that because no one knew. No one knew, no one knew. Like, this is something that my dad didn't know. This is something my mom didn't know. Their mentality is you work as hard as you can, you work as hard as you can. So I come from a place where it's like, you got to keep the foot on their necks. You got to keep going hard. You don't want to lose your opportunity.
Yeah.
That was my thinking. But really, I had already had it.
Yeah.
I already have it. So now to take it to another place, I got to take care of myself so I can bring my best self to the table. And it's something that life forced me to do. It's something that life forced me to do, man. And I had to stop everything I was doing and completely fall back, bro. Completely fall back from looking at things about me, from being online, completely fall back from all the obligations I had to do, performances, money I was losing. Like, it was just like I had to fall back from everything and take some time. And that's when I met Marie Diamond. And obviously I had seen her on The Secret. I was, I knew about her. And my mom, taking one of her classes, emailed Marie Diamond and was like, hey, my son is a musician, this and this and this. And then she got an email back from Marie Diamond. My mom was freaking out. And Marie Diamond said, this is so crazy because my son has Sean on his vision board.
Wow.
And she was, I've never worked with a rapper, I've never done anything like this. She's worked with big people, big clients. But anyway, that was a serendipity, that was a meant to be thing. And that came at a time right where I needed it. And I got into the technique of loving myself, bro. Bringing it back to the point I said earlier, when I would look at Bob Ross and Michael Jordan, it's all technique. So much of life is technique. What you do is technique because I had to get into the technique of loving myself. I had to really make sure that I put myself as a priority. My meditations came before anything. Me writing down my intentions, every day or every other day, or writing my thoughts down, like that was a priority to me. Spending time for myself, being out in nature, right? Working. I started taking care of myself more, working out. That's something I never did. I gained 30 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, we got to show like a before and after.
Yeah. We'll get it. We'll get it for this.
Crazy. I used to look totally different. It changed me for the better, and it's built my strength up. It's given me more strength to deal with things when they don't go my way. Before, it would tear me down. Before, I used to let people's opinions about me really affect me.
Yeah, same.
And now it's like, what am I even thinking right now? Yeah. You know what I mean? It's crazy how we can look and see a comment that's like, I love you, I appreciate you, you changed my life, amazing. Man, this guy sucks. And we'd be like, man, this dude just said I suck. I'm doing something wrong, It's crazy how our mind immediately goes there because our ego.
Yeah.
Or maybe because something else, but I think it's just that ego.
It is. Tell me about, why do you think delusion is useful, and where have you also seen it be dangerous? Because I think both is
well, I think it kind of depends on what reality you're trying to create. But I do believe in, I used to walk around saying all my beats are $1 million a beat and I'm a billionaire and I just went platinum 8 times. These are all things I would say like that had not happened. And they were insane. Me and Bugis, my best friend who started Diamond, he put out a project back in 2011 and we called it 2020, and I produced the whole thing, and we did the entire album from the perspective of 2020. So it was like we're on Rolls Royces and we just made millions of, like, it was all just distorted reality, but it ended up becoming reality. So I do believe that if you want to change your reality, you have to already believe that it is your reality. But obviously if you like are trying to do something evil or ill intent, it's not gonna be great for everyone else. But
yeah, just before we started recording, we were talking about, being creative and being busy.
Mm-hmm.
And you said something really interesting. You were just like, I'm always creative. I've always got stuff going on here. And then you were like, there's some days where I don't, feeling lazy. Like, walk us through that, because as someone who's super creative, who's loved for your creativity and how original your work is, and that's why I've always liked you. I've always felt your sound is very original and unique, and it's hard to like be like, it's not like, oh, it sounds like that person or sounds like this. It's like, oh, no, this is original. Like, that's where I've always resonated with your work. Tell us about how that is something you achieve, even though there are days where you kind of feel like, I just want to sleep all day or whatever.
Yeah. It's tough because, and me and Bouyes talk about it all the time. The highs and lows of an artist is really dramatic, at least for me. Like, I'll have days, if I go into the studio and make something I love, I'm like on cloud 9, like everything is great in my life. But then I go to sleep and I wake up, and that next day, none of that matters. Like, I move on very quickly, and I'm just like, okay, now I need to make another one. But if I can't make another one, if that day I'm just not feeling it, or I go to the studio and I try and nothing works, I'm like, I should just give up. This is it. I'll never get a creative source again. You know what I mean? And it gets very like, you sink really low sometimes, especially if you go, for me, I make so much music that if I don't make a song for 4 days, I'm like, this is crazy. Like, what's happening? I'm depressed. So it's hard, but you got to just remember that you just have to have faith in sort of the creator, in the infinite. And, I don't feel like I really make music. I feel like I deliver it, because I feel like when I have those moments, it's just something that's coming to me and I'm the vessel, and now I'm just delivering it and I'm executing it and I'm almost discovering it in the studio. I don't know if I'm creating it, I'm discovering it, if that makes sense. Yeah. So you're not always gonna be in that place where you're getting the message and you're getting the energy. So it just is what it is. It's just hard. It's the waiting time in between will make you feel like this is it. I'll never make another song again.
What makes you feel that? I love what you just said about delivering versus creating. I think that's phenomenal, and it's explained really well. What makes you feel like you're in alignment where you can deliver versus forcing you to create? Like, what are the things that...
Lack of thought.
Right.
Yeah, lack of thought. Those times where you get into that place where you're not thinking and you're just feeling, and like I said, just delivering. Like, I'm not even thinking about should I say this? Like, you get the inspiration and you just execute it. That's when you just enter that flow state, and it's just special, But it's tricky. It's hard, especially like I said, as I got not even necessarily older, just more visibility. There's outside chatter now in my head, what people are going to think. I know that I'm not just releasing it to my friends anymore. Like, so it's become trickier to tune out everything. But yeah, man, just try to focus on the present moment. That's like the one thing that I learned this past year was really like, how do I slow down time? And I was like, okay, well, the way I slow down time is to slow down my thoughts. And the way I slow down my thoughts is to be present. You notice if you're just mindless and you're making a sandwich, but you're thinking about, oh my God, what I need to do tomorrow, and all of a sudden 2 hours passes, right? But if you really think about like, you cutting the sandwich and what that's like, and you stepping on the grass and what your feet feel like, time moves really slow. You realize how slow time moves. So I just try to do that. I try to stay in the present, even in the studio. I don't try to have my thoughts already be on when this comes out and this is going to be like this and how's it going to go. I'm just like, man, let me just like actually hear the music and feel the music and just operate from this place.
I love hearing you talk about this, man, because, these are some of the principles that I'm constantly sharing in my work.
Yeah.
But hearing how it applies to a music artist in your career brings me so much joy.
Yeah.
Because it's practical, it's real. Like, you've got time pressures, you've got pressures from labels, collaborations, whatever it may be. Like, there are real life pressures. But when I hear you say that, and that's how you feel aligned, how did you get introduced to this work or this set of thoughts and beliefs and mindsets? Was it something that you had since you were a kid, or where did you start exploring with the idea of being present, experiencing, feeling, delivering?
The present moment is recent. Because you know what? I felt almost like I didn't need to be present, I guess, when I was coming up, because there wasn't anything pulling me away from the present moment. I kind of only had the present. moment, if that makes sense. It was just me and Bugis in the basement making songs, and that was it. There wasn't tours coming up and videos. There was none of that. So, but as this past year and past couple years have been happening, I got into the Power of Now book and just sort of just the whole ideology around just being present, and started reading more into that whole theory. And I bought into it. A lot of this stuff, people don't realize that a lot of this stuff, like the teachings, the self-help stuff, you have to be open to receiving it, And if you're not open to receiving it and you're not willing to buy into it, then I hear you, but God bless, I can only tell people what works for me. But it worked for me, being present.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the Power of Now, and then when you talk about flow state.
Yeah.
For anyone who's listening, if you've not read that book, it's a brilliant book as well.
Flow state. I haven't read that book.
Yeah, it's called Flow.
Wow.
And for anyone who doesn't know, flow, the way it's defined in that book is where your skills meet your challenge.
Exactly.
So
I saw like a YouTube video, and that was like enough for me. I should read the book though.
Yeah, no. But you brought it up, and it's a brilliant concept, and you're
really
experiencing that, because most people, it says, experience when their challenge is above their skills, and so they feel frustrated and disappointed.
Yeah, and then they give up.
Yeah, or their skills are above their challenge, and then they feel bored because they actually have more skills than what they're trying to achieve.
And I think I fell into that a little bit, which is why I started working with outside producers, because it was so easy for me to just like go downstairs and make like a Russ song. Like I have a million beats, I can make it be boom, do this. And it's like, all right, cool, whatever. But it kind of, I got into like a rut creatively because I was making songs, but I was like, it just wasn't even that fun, And I think it was because it wasn't that challenging anymore. So I started working with outside producers where it was like, okay, this is a bit of a challenge. And then further, I started trying to get on beats. Even if no one hears them, I started to get on production that I don't like, in a sense. Almost to just be like, can I make a song out of this?
Wow.
Yeah, just like, because I got the studio in my house and I don't need anyone to record me, so I can just be down there like experimenting. So there's been beats that producers send me and I'm like, I don't like this at all, but I wonder if I can make a song out of it. And it becomes this cool little like fun project. And a lot of times it's turned into songs that I'm like, this is crazy.
Wow.
Like I get so much more fulfillment out of it because I couldn't see it coming. A lot of my songs, I'm like, before, when I'm making the beat, I already know what the whole song's gonna sound like. And most of those usually end up being very successful, so I'm not gonna downplay them. But it does make the process not as on an Easter egg hunt.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I love hearing that, because that's putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation.
Right.
And most of us avoid that.
Yeah.
Like most of us just want to hear a beat and feel something straight away.
Right. Well, see, because people are around other people. I would probably never do that if there was people in the studio with me. Like, actually, out of all the beats you played, give me the one I don't like, and I'm just gonna try to make something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why I always tell people, whatever your craft is, make sure you have it in your house if you can, because those moments of solitude when you can kind of just be weird and experiment and dance around crazy and be nuts, that's where you're really gonna, I have a line where I say the public praises people for what they practice in private. So I just feel like that's when you gotta hone in on everything, is what you're doing in private. So when I'm by myself in the studio, I be getting weird.
Can you tell us what's the weirdest thing that's ever happened?
I mean, it's not that weird, but it's just like when I'm by myself, I'll put on a beat that I'm like, I don't even know what I'm about to do on this, and I'll just put the auto-tune all the way up and go stand in the booth for 60 takes, just wailing and just making noises. And I'll be like, this is wild, or this is trash, or this was really cool. Like I sent my manager some song I did where I made a beat and I just put the auto-tune on full blast and just freestyled the whole song. And I was like, I just had to get it out.
Yeah.
But it was cool. But like, I would never put it out. But it was awesome.
Dude, this is so inspiring. I love that approach. It's so refreshing hearing that.
Well, it's a refreshing process, because you get so rigid with like your process, and this is what I do, and we sit here and I make this kind of song. It's like every once in a while you have to shake the snow globe. That's where that whole concept came from. You have to just it's like the Tin Man in Wizard of Oz. Like, turn the auto-tune up and put on some crazy beat and let me just be a maniac for an hour.
Yeah. It breaks the formula.
It does.
We work in this formulaic
it does.
Product line manufacturing.
Right.
And you can't manufacture greatness.
And that's from school.
Yeah.
That's from school. School is such a factory setup.
How were you at school? What kind of?
I was incredible at school, to be honest. I'm not even gonna lie. I was just like, I'm really not. I was not one of those like, I struggled in school and it was difficult. I was really, really good at school because I wouldn't apply myself, but I was definitely the kid who like didn't study, never did homework, but I would get A's and B's on all the tests. And so everyone was just like, but I would be like, I was second. I always say this, and it's not even something I'm necessarily proud of, but it just gives context. But like a senior superlative, I was like second for most likely to make a teacher retire. Because I was just the kid in class, like constantly talking, distracting people, challenging the teacher, but I had an A in the class. So I was just super annoying, which I know is a surprise to so many people.
and so tell me, go back to the point you were making before I interjected around why you think that factory, yes.
Well, yeah, because, you have an expiration date as a kid in school. You got to be out by a certain time in high school, whatever age it is. Go to this department of the building when the bell rings. You know what I mean? It's just very like there's no creativity in there. That's why I'm really big on having arts in schools and, just because otherwise you just, I don't know, just like creates these robots.
I love that you break the mold. How do you get to a point though where what I find fascinating, already your process is fascinating to me. What I find more interesting though is that your ability to trust yourself when you come up with something insane. Yeah. Because very few people ever allow themselves to do a wild card thing.
Right.
Now, when you do a wild card thing in the studio on your own and you discover something like a sound or a auto-tune or whatever it is, and you discover a beat or a sound that you're like, oh, I like this. How do you then trust yourself to go with that when you play it to someone, they might be like, all right, you're crazy, Russ. Like, this is never going to work. How do you then approach that?
It's that level it's that stain of confidence that's just, you can't remove. I just still, like, Nas has this quote in an interview, I believe, where he said, if it doesn't scare you, you shouldn't put it out. So I've always kind of like kept that in the back of my head. I usually move with that. And I'm cool with that. And I like that with my fans. What I've created is this trust and this unpredictably unpredictable sort of relationship where they know they can expect me to be doing the unexpected, meaning they know it might be raps, they know it might be singing, but they don't know what it's going to sound like, but they know it's going to be me. And so I think I've done a very good job at painting my canvas and kind of giving people who I am. So it's allowed me a lot of creative freedom. I always tell up and coming artists, like, when you're coming up, you don't want to then, this is my opinion, when you're coming up and you're building your fan base, you're conditioning them to expect a certain thing from you, a certain sound or whatever, and you're creating this creative window. A lot of people, if you just come up only rapping, right, and you get your whole fan base off of only rapping, let's say, you haven't really fully tapped into you yet, and now you want to start singing, a lot of fans are going to be like, you switched up, what are you doing? And, you could lose a lot of people, and they might think that you're changing when really the whole time that's been you. You just didn't have enough time to discover it. So I was really proud of myself that I was able to kind of give people the whole scope of my creativity so that when I do go left field, no one's going to be like, what are you doing? Because it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's Russ just being Russ. Like, we know that sometimes he's giving us red, sometimes it's yellow, sometimes it's orange, whatever, That's kind of why I did the artworks all like that too.
Yeah.
Just to let you know that all my music is all different colors. It's not just one.
Just spending this time with you already, and even when you came in and stuff, like, you're someone who's very comfortable in their own skin, but at the same time, you're not arrogant and egotistic.
Really?
And so
wow.
I don't feel
did everyone hear that?
I'm just.
That's
I'm
a
just,
first.
No,
I agree too. I think I bought into the own narrative.
He doesn't have an ego. I love it.
No, I definitely have an ego.
No, I mean in the sense of let's talk about ego for a bit, because and I mean it in a good way. I was saying it as a compliment that I feel that you have a very from what I'm hearing, or at least, and I'm only basing on this conversation I've had with you, but it's like there's a stability between like knowing you want to learn more and be better,
Yeah.
but you are confident about who you are and
Sure.
where you are, which is a beautiful place to be, by the way. Like,
Thank you.
who doesn't want to be between those two things?
Yeah.
How have you tempered that ego that we all have with the desire to learn and grow and realize there's more to go, but I'm really happy with what I've done? Because that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of break that down for people, because I think a lot of people live in either extreme. Either they're celebrating their last win for like 7 years.
Right.
Or they're just like, oh, I'm the worst. I'm never going to win. I'm never going to win. And they don't appreciate where they are.
Yeah. I think for me, to be honest, despite perception or whatever, I had to hype myself up. I had to be the biggest believer of myself. That's the only reason why any of this worked. And I think that, and because I'm very vocal about it, because I'm putting it out into the universe so that it comes back, it could come off like I think I have nothing left to learn and nobody can offer me anything. And I know it's like, no, y'all just don't know what self-belief sounds like, clearly. You might know what it looks like, and some people are just more quiet about their self-belief just to get people to like them. Otherwise, you get kind of my perception. But but no, I've always still been a massive fan of people and a massive just supporter of anything dope. Anyone that knows me from when I was nothing to now, from 2 years old to now, like if you're dope at anything, I'm always the first person to like root for you, DM you, send you advice, like, bro, hit me anytime. And even just looking up to people, I'm a fan out. I'm like, yo, you're incredible. I would love to work with you. I'm that person too. So I don't know. It's the duality. You are able to have the utmost confidence in yourself while still also knowing that, okay, but this person is really dope too. And if we come together, it could be really fire. I'm just really confident in myself. And so I'm not desperate to reach after collabs and things like that. But it doesn't mean I don't think that I know everything. And, you know, I'm always asking all my engineer friends, like, yo, what plugin is that? Like, this is crazy, yo, you're fired. You know, and people you could ask even like Kid Super. When I first met him, the dude who made this sweater, he did my Gypsy video years ago, like 2014. And when I first met him, he thought I was hella weird or like socially awkward, because I kept giving him mad compliments because I was it was like my first real kind of video-ish, even though it wasn't like some big production. But I was just so enamored by the process and I thought it was so dope that I'm just like, that's who I am. I'm a very complimentary person and like, I'm always going to give people their flowers. And he was just like, I'm like, nah, I genuinely feel like that. So I don't know. I've always been able to have that level of duality.
Yeah, I love the idea of that paradox. Like it feels like it's not allowed. Like it sounds like it should not be possible to think both those things.
Yeah.
But actually that's where all the magic happens.
I agree.
Right? Like that we always think, no, you have to choose, you have to decide, or you're either or. But actually hearing you say that, yeah, actually, I think both those things.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love how that doesn't stop you from appreciating others.
Yeah.
Who was it that appreciated your sound earlier on that you think made a difference to you and made, guided you? Or was it just you for yourself?
It was me and probably Boogus. Like, for the longest time, it was just Boogus rapping and me producing. And that was my closest example of like someone who I thought had really good taste and I trusted their opinion artistically. So when Boogus gave me the green light to be like, yo, yeah, you should rap, it was just kind of like, okay, well, game over for everyone else. Like if Boogus thinks it's tight, so, and that's how it still is. Like, it's important to have, you only need one, but it's important to have at least one person who believes in you, sometimes almost more than you. And there is no jealousy or weird, you can't win because then I won't win. Like it's a very weird thing. So I always, commend Boogus for being like the best friend you could have in something that I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's talk about that. I like what you brought up there about men specifically. Like, and you took me straight back to like my teenage years where I'd be best friend with a dude and he'd be like my brother, but then we'd go out and he'd be like, all right, let's see who can get more girls today. Right? Like that would be his mentality. Or like, oh, let's see who'll be better at the sport today. And it was every time, I've realized that everyone in my life or male relationships, if every time a guy a friend of mine has tried to turn a friendship into a competition,
Yeah.
they haven't lasted in my life.
Yeah.
Like they're no longer in my life because I just wanted to be friends.
Well, now don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Me and Boogus, dumb competitive.
Okay, so explain.
We played basketball together. Like
Right.
anything me and Boogus will turn into a competition for sure. But when it comes to a dream you're following after, like it's never like, yo, how many streams did your song do, bro? You know what I'm saying? It's never been that.
How do you build that balance? What is it about him and what is it about you that allows you to build that kind of a friendship? Because I think that's rare.
Yeah, I do too.
Especially in today's social media world, stream world. I mean, followers, views, comments, engagement, all this stuff that we all talk about.
I think we're both trying to do the same thing, you know, and we were both real friends before all this. And we both understood, you know, we read Napoleon Hill, so we understand the power of a mastermind. And we just, as big of egos as me and him have, we never let it get in the way of like supporting one another and any of that, you know? So I don't know. I just think it comes down to the person. Like, how real are you? You know, some people are just fake. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that idea of being able to have at least even one person.
Just
like
one.
you said,
That's
just
all you
one.
need.
You don't need. Yeah, because sometimes we want 10 or 20 like that. And you're right, for most of us, we're lucky to have one.
Yeah.
And that's a good enough start. You mentioned Napoleon Hill and Mastermind. What age were you when you read that book?
17. Boogus gave me the book. So Boogus was putting me on to a lot of that stuff. He put me on to Napoleon Hill. He put me on to The Alchemist. You know, so that's the thing. We weren't just like I would say the like typical 17, 18-year-olds, you know, hanging out. We graduated high school 17 and we just were locked in the studio from then until now, you know? So it was a lot of self-discovery, but out the gate, once we left high school, we were reading those books. So it was just kind of like, we were ready to go mentally. Like we read those books and we're both the kind of people that we buy into something quick. And then we latch onto it, and then that's that. You know, if that's what we believe, you can't tell us anything different. You know, like if I went vegan for a year because I watched one documentary and like that was that. Like once something clicks in my brain, I'm done. You know what I mean? Like right now, I haven't had bread or grains in 2 weeks because I just like woke up and it clicked. Like my brother, nutritionist, told me and I latched onto and boom, that's it. Me and him have always been very good at just, once we decide something, that's what it is. He lost a bunch of weight, you know, 30, 40 pounds because he just decided I'm done, you know? So once me and him decided this is what we were doing with our lives, there was no, but maybe we're not doing it with our lives. Or this was it. And we were both fully committed. And every day and every second of our lives was committed to this, you know?
It was just something I did within my community. But as circumstance goes, you know, sometimes destiny finds you and you try and push something away. Many times, I think, you know, Jay and I have had probably many conversations over the years where I've been like, I just don't know if this is what I meant to do, or like, yeah, I do this, you know, that kind of thing where you keep trying to turn away from something, but it kept coming back to me. It kept knocking on my door.
Both of us kept on trying to go, no music.
Yeah.
No music. And it was like, yes.
Yeah. You know, like when you have to write on a form, you know, occupation, and I would always stop and be like, what do I write there? You know, because I wrote, I did art, I was a dancer, but I didn't want to write musician or artist or writer. I just didn't know what to write because I didn't fully identify with being able to say, this is what I am. So yeah, it came bit by bit. And I think one of the big catalysts for me with feeling confident to try to accept the role of, you know, embracing my creativity and engaging it in service of spreading this type of music more is the fact that yoga, meditation, mindfulness, those things over the last 10 years became so much more mainstream than they ever were. And when I was a child, I never would have imagined that would be the case. I thought that was just the strange way that I grew up, you know? And that, like, kids used to ask me, like, so why don't you, you know, like, why are you vegetarian? And why do you have a name like that? And stuff like that.
Jeez,
and yeah. But now it's like, no, this is it's pretty normal, especially in LA. It's so it's been a journey, but I'm so grateful to be doing this now. It brings me so much fulfillment.
Yeah, we're grateful to you too for sticking it through and continuing on, and we're never going to let you quit. So
I don't want to quit.
Johnny,
yeah,
music is gonna keep coming back.
I know.
but we love that. Yeah, we love that. Both of you, for everyone who's listening and watching, I think there's such a pressure these days for young people, especially to find their purpose or discover what they want to do for the rest of their lives. And you can see in both of the way you are experiencing, it's kind of not been like that. It's kind of been much more of this meandering path and kind of getting lost and then refining and then feeling stuck and then questioning everything and then finding it. And this almost like magical approach to like, I found my purpose or I found my, calling. Exactly. It doesn't work like that. And it's nice to see two people who are creating and artistic, but it's kind of coming over time.
It's such a process. It's such a journey, and there's so many internal obstacles that need to be looked at and that need to be worked on until you can step into your calling, until you can step into your purpose fully. And God knows I'm still trying to step in.
Yes.
I'm still trying to step in.
Yeah.
What would you say are both of your daily things that you do in your lives that help enrich you or uplift you? What are the things that you've started to do? Yeah, I think on a daily basis, because I feel like they're the things that really make, a difference if you're doing something regularly.
You're so good at this.
Yeah.
I've watched a few of your... No, I haven't. No. I haven't, but thank you. Please continue.
Well, I find that daily meditation, I practice mantra meditation daily. And that is something that I really hold on to. Like I imagine, if you take life to be like a river, that is, the current is flowing very fast. In some of these sacred rivers in India where people, they take a dip, as a purifying kind of act, they have these metal chains that are in the water that you hold on to when you go in to make sure you don't get swept away. So I see the mantra meditation as sort of like this chain to hold on to in the rushing current of life. And it really, even though it's not easy, I know Willow has, a yoga practice you've been cultivating for a long time. To do anything daily is not an easy thing. And you don't always feel like doing it. And sometimes you do it robotically. And then you're like, I got to come back to, the deeper reason of why I'm doing this. But to just keep that commitment, it develops a relationship with sacred space within. It develops a relationship with the divine that really is, it's a lifesaver. It gives me inspiration. It gives me sense of connection, and it's a meditation. The particular mantra that I recite daily, the meditation is on how can I be of service, and a prayer for service. Please allow me to be of service in this life. So I love how Willow was describing that service. It brings you out of that space, because every day we have to push against our tendency to be self-absorbed. It's like at every moment we tend to be caught in our head thinking about our own worries and things like that. And to turn that around to how can I serve? It's such a dramatic, state change. And so for me, that helps. It helps then, whether I'm doing one thing or another, just to keep connecting with that core reason of why, of what is the purpose of my existence, to serve. It makes things a lot more simpler and joyful.
Yeah. I'm just going to piggyback off of what Genevieve said. Yes, I've been cultivating a yoga practice for about, I want to say, 2 year and a half.
We see those posts.
Yeah. I want to say 2 years or a year and a half. And, another thing, aside from meditation that I try to do daily, sometimes it doesn't happen. I read every day. Right now I'm reading Inner Engineering by Sadhguru. So that's something that I've been putting my time into every day. So whether it's, literature, yoga, or meditation, one of those things is happening every day. So I'm just like Genevieve said, I truly believe that consistency and that repetition is what's needed in order to get into a state where it is second nature, where you don't have to think about it anymore, where it's habitual. Exactly. And that's where I'm trying to be. That's where I'm striving to.
I think what you both are doing, keeping it consistent, that's probably how, you've realized what the benefits are, that living a life without it, that feels more unnatural than doing the practice. I was thinking about how, both of your practices are things which people have been doing for years, such an ancient thing that people have been doing. But what's incredible about your music is that I think it's shown so many people who are probably unfamiliar with meditation, unfamiliar with yoga, or see it as something that's so unfamiliar, that meditation music or mantra music is for everybody. Like, it's such a universal thing that so many different types of people can connect to it just by your different backgrounds, that you two have connected to it in such a different way. And how you're sharing it, it's beautiful to see how different meditation music and devotional music can actually be, and how many different types of people it can connect.
Yeah, I'm glad you put that bass on it so I could turn it up in the car.
See, I knew it. I needed that. Right. I knew it.
I love it. The first time I heard it, I was telling Genevieve, it was just like, it's just all the music, what you've made it's like that perfect combination between being timeless and pure, but then being current and relevant.
Exactly.
And you've created, in my opinion, whatever it's worth, like, it sounds like a no genre. Like, it's new, it's different. It's not, you can't just go, oh yeah, that's that kind of music. I wouldn't even put it under meditational music. Like, it's beyond that. And I think that, credit to both of your artistry to be able to expand that much. What's different about creating devotional music for both of you, and Genevieve, for you to stretch out of your comfort zone from a music place of now creating this new genre that you have together? So for Willow, for you, more like what's different about creating devotional music for you from your perspective, and then Genevieve, from yours, like almost going the other way and like, oh, now we're creating something a bit newer to what I'm used to.
My lyrics that, in the Willow album and in Ardipithecus, my first album, I talk a lot about duality. I talk a lot about spirit. I talk a lot about, cycles. I have a song that's called Cycles on my first album. The language is very modern. And what I love about Sanskrit is that it's deeper than language. And I think the real difference is bringing that ancient vibration to it that isn't just coming from me. It's coming from generations and generations of deeply spiritual individuals who have carried this on. And I think, feeling that is the biggest difference for me, because it's not just me coming up with something.
Wow.
Powerful.
That's really powerful. Yeah, that's incredible to think of it like that. That's so well articulated. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Bravo.
You accept me.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Wow. I've been hit by your articulation of that. That's so beautiful. Yeah. I think it's so interesting because I think for me, it was almost, I wouldn't say the opposite, because naturally we're trying to retain the purity of devotional space. And like with recording, we set up a little altar, like in the studio. It's really nice to have that feel to be a sacred space.
That intention, like you're making it.
Yeah. But with this EP, because most of the time I'm singing mantra, which obviously those words are not mine. I'm putting my heart, my prayer into it, but I'm also trusting the power of that ancient vibration, that timeless vibration, to touch the heart of another. And for that reason, I don't take credit when someone has, a powerful experience with it. It's like, oh yeah, that's what it does. That's what it does to me too. So I'm just trying to, facilitate this experience. But with this album, I definitely was stretching myself, because I think just before we came together, I'd been recently feeling a lot more inspired to to write lyrics in English that convey some of these ideas and themes, which was daunting for me because it's something I hardly ever do, let alone record. I have tons of voice notes in my phone, which will never see the light of day, ideas that I've had. But it was so cool because I didn't think we would actually work on those things. But when I showed some of them to Willow, she was so encouraging and excited about it. And I was sort of like, well, what do you think? Like, you add your lyrics in too. She was like, no, I love this. I think we should go for it. I was like, really? And then so to actually bring some of those ideas to life, for me, that was a beautiful experience of being able to come outside of the space of, okay, this is just mantra. It's not me, but here's this, ancient sound vibration, to actually, here's some words that I wrote, which convey how I want to, take a snapshot of this, this sentiment, for instance, of surrender, or what's
how you've experienced it,
how I've experienced it, or what's meaningful to me or to us, and for me that was a really that was extremely powerful. I came away being like, whoa, I didn't know I could do that.
Yes.
So I'm so grateful for that. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, I could feel that sense of hesitancy. That's why I was like, yes. I was like, let's go full fledged.
Yeah. Are you sure? She's like, let's do it.
Yeah, because I was like, you gonna know the greatness of you today.
What's the both of you live real lives in the real world. You go through your challenges every single day, and people who listen to this are going through their own challenges. What's been something that's been really beautiful or powerful for both of you individually that you feel has helped you discover answers at tough times, or find new directions at tough times? What is it that both of you have turned to in your own life, whether it be musical or not, that you think that almost, what is it that people can do to express themselves more? Because it feels like so many of our feelings do get bottled up and do just get thought about inside. What has been powerful for you individually?
I mean, it might be a little unorthodox,
Yeah.
but I actually really enjoy looking at myself in the mirror and explaining, like telling, like having a conversation with myself, basically. Like when I'm having tough emotions that I feel like I don't want to express to other people, or I feel like embarrassed or whatever it is, I always try to like just look at myself and be like, no, you're valid. Like, explain the full depth of everything that you're feeling, and then look at yourself and like explain back to yourself why those emotions, not why those emotions are okay, but accepting yourself in a certain way. And, sometimes when the FaceTime doesn't work and people don't answer their phone, you can talk to yourself. And it does work. It does work for me. It does.
I love that. That's so good. Yeah, I've never heard anyone do that in the mirror.
I feel like it's taking journaling to another level.
Yeah,
you're actually facing yourself, which I think a lot of the times we are battling with our own self rather than with other people. And so actually looking at yourself in the mirror and and speaking to yourself is so powerful.
It gets deep. The tears start flowing, and then you start looking
stop
at yourself.
crying.
Exactly. And you're like, dang, like, I see you. Like, we're together in this. Like, we got each other.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I hope everyone tries that out this week.
Yeah.
Anyone who's listening or watching, try it out. I'm being serious.
It's a good, sometimes I feel weird saying it because some people, you know, are like, that's ridiculous. But I've done it. And it has stopped the tears.
Yeah.
Wow.
Great.
Yeah, I was thinking as you were speaking that for me, writing has always been a powerful one. And it's funny because I think of the page being like a mirror. And I think many people find writing to be like that.
Yeah.
To the point where I remember some difficult points in my life where I didn't write for a very long time. For probably 2 years, I didn't write anything on a page because I was afraid of what would come out and what I would see. I felt just this complete block, you know, and then to release that, to start, I always feel such a relief when I put a pen on the paper and start to write. And I was introduced to the practice of free writing some years ago. There's a famous book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And this practice of morning pages is something that many people have found a lot of, just incredible experiences from. So I started to do that, and I still turn to that when I try to do it regularly, but it's also one of those things you go through phases, you know. But for me, so writing is always a huge help. I mean, stating the obvious, I think, you know, kirtan, meditation, music, of course, but my other huge one, which I think Willow and I share, is to connect with nature.
100, yep.
Just to walk. I mean, I think I try and go for a walk in nature every day, and without fail, it's like a balm. It's uplifting. It brings me back to myself. It sparks ideas and creativity. It's just like the road and the page. They're my two friends that really help me so much.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. That's so awesome. And I guess that's what's inspired a lot of your work. I know, Janavi, whenever you're doing your BBC Pause for Thought sessions, you talk a lot about the environment and climate change, and that where do you see that intersection between like art and the environment or climate change or expression and that? Is there a synergy there, or is it just something that you feel is a different part of you where your care comes from?
I think it's absolutely intertwined. I mean, nature is the most beautiful art that we can witness and observe. I'm so inspired by the natural world, and my mom is a really avid gardener and lover of, you know, wild plants and herbs, and she sort of brought us up like that to observe and learn about all the properties of plants and trees around us. So I'm kind of obsessed with plants and flowers, and people could laugh at me, but it's like I'm always looking. I'm inspired by the textures, by the shapes, by the different aromas, everything. And so our nature inspires me creatively immensely. And in terms of caring for nature, I think like a person, the more you know a person, the more you care. So the more we observe and connect and feel a sense of relationship with nature, that care, it's like, why wouldn't I care? That it's a beautiful exchange.
It nourishes me.
Absolutely. There's a mutual exchange of nourishment going on. And I think also with the particular type of creativity and art, you know, the questions that I'm asking or that we're asking about service, about divinity, these kinds of things, they bring us also closer to our deepest essence, which I believe is meant to be in harmony with nature. So the more that you're coming into that space, again, it just becomes a very natural connection to feel. And so, I'm kind of a nature addict. And I know, like, when I visited Willow in her home, you know, there's such a beautiful view of the ocean, and it's like it's just it's a part of you, right?
Yeah, 100%.
You gotta be there.
I think a significant decline in my mental health would happen if I were to live in a city.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, I do live in a city, but if I were to live like amongst buildings.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I need to wake up and see trees. I need to
just one tree.
Exactly.
At least one
At
tree.
least one. At least one. I need I'm a nature addict. What can I say?
Yeah.
Just like you.
Yeah.
And that's definitely one of the biggest healing agents in my life, 100%.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking about this for the past couple of days about how you see this connection between spirituality and science and physics and spirituality.
Now she's gonna get going.
You know, and you've always been very much talking about like science and physics and like, but then you're also really interested in spirituality. Yeah. Tell us about how you started to see so early in your life the connection and synergy between the two.
Yes.
Because I think so often they're talked about so separately, or
100%.
they're seen as like divisive or disconnected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest moments in my life that made me really move towards this marriage of spirituality and science was, I had been reading a lot of spiritual literature. I had been reading a lot of Osho, I read this one book called Oneness, and that book changed my life forever. And just the idea of vibration, and that everything is vibration really hit me because I am a musician and music is like the biggest love of my life. And then learning about string theory was just opened my mind into such a place that it was like, these two things are the same. Like people think that they're separate, and in some ways they are, but in the fundament, they're just two sides of the same coin. And so that inspired me to just dive really deep into the physical world and just how things work. And that's how I just got into physics and started studying physics. And, I've been studying more of the spiritual lane recently. It's hard, I will say, to study them deeply at the same time. But I study them separately, deeply, and I go back and forth and then try to figure out how to bring them together in some way. But in my life, I'm constantly relating my spiritual experiences with, all of the scientific things that I've read, or, just being in physics class and telling my physics teacher like, oh, you should read this book. And he's like, okay, I'm a physics teacher. I'm not a metaphysics teacher. So I just want to continue to just get more intelligent and more intelligent while also losing my ego. I think is where I'm trying to go, which is kind of counterintuitive. Yeah. But I think it is possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
intelligence in service.
Exactly. And so that's really just, I have lots of goals, but that's one of them.
Save the world.
Exactly. Yes. I have lots of goals, but they all give me joy, and really just my curiosity for both makes life just exciting. Those two things just make my life feel exciting to me.
Yeah. I actually think that paradox is what makes it exciting.
Yes.
If your pursuit was only to become intelligent, you'd get bored.
Exactly.
And if your pursuit was only to remove ego, it wouldn't be as exciting.
Exactly.
It would be quite tough. And so actually, both
Those
of them
two,
together is a beautiful path. And often the path that can only be walked when you do both paths to really get it right. So 100%. I love that.
100%.
I love that. What were you going to ask?
I wasn't.
I want to add something. That's also why I really admire you, Jay, because you, while also having been a monk for 5 years, 3 years, you are also one of the most intelligent people I know. And that's so inspiring to see that you can do both and that both can be done. It just inspires me to do it. It just inspires me to try to actually put that into my own life. And I'm just so happy that you're in my life so that I can see you grow and constantly learn from you. And that's really amazing to me.
Oh, you're the sweetest. I'm like getting all emotional now, but
Now we're just
No.
gonna all be crying.
yeah. No, I love that. And I really
No, I'm your
appreciate.
fan.
Yeah.
I'm your fan.
No,
That
I,
was like Willow's 40-year-old grandma inside her talking.
I know.
Proud to
I-
be.
I know.
I love it.
no, I really appreciate that from you. It's I think we both have a lot more in common than we know too.
Totally.
We're kind of discovering it recently.
I love
so,
that you guys have
Yeah.
so I'm just like, oh yeah, I can learn a lot. And that's why, I think what we all were talking about yesterday is, and I think why we all like being around each other is, and why everyone who's listening or watching, I'm hoping that this is encouraging you to connect with like-hearted people, connect with and collaborate with people that you're close to.